Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So things are changing rapidly currently, and I know it's a tough time, but again, make sure to follow the instructions of your public health authority and just kind of stay cool, calm and collected, and I think we'll all get through everything together. This is probably the point of the video when I would usually say, consider following us or supporting us on Patreon. But I know it's tough times for people, and if you could do, like the video or share it, that would mean a huge deal to us. We're going to keep trying to maintain this pretty frequent upload schedule because I know a lot of people are going to have more time on their hands, and we'll all get through it together. So today's video is about ranking Canada's rapid transit systems. So Canada has 7 rapid transit systems currently, and disclaimer, I have not been to Alberta to film the systems in Alberta and Edmonton and Calgary. I don't dislike Alberta, or at least I don't dislike Edmonton and Calgary's rapid transit systems. The issue is simply that I'm from Vancouver, so that's why I filmed Vancouver's system, and I've gone to university in Toronto for the past 4 years, so I've been able to film kind of all the systems on the eastern end of the country. And so, yeah, this year I want to get out to Calgary and Edmonton to film their systems, but because I haven't so far, when I'm talking about those systems, you're gonna have to stare at my face. So, without further ado, let's start talking about the rankings. So in 7th place, I'm going to rank the Waterloo Ion LRT. Now this is no kind of diss to the Waterloo Ion LRT. It's a great system, and Waterloo is a small region, so having any level of rapid transit is pretty much unheard of for a region the size of Waterloo in North America. That being said, the system is not that extensive. It's not that much better than a kind of a high order BRT system. It's just kind of a small system right now, so it would be hard to rank it much higher. It does have quite a few stops, the same number as Edmonton, or maybe one more right now, so that is quite impressive in my personal opinion. The Ion LRT also connects a number of Waterloo Region's kind of most important attractions, such as the downtown core of Kitchener, numerous tech offices, the universities. So it's just a great rapid transit line, and so that's why it ranks in 7th place. Next up in 6th place is the Edmonton ETS LRT. Now, I was thinking perhaps Edmonton should rank a little higher, but unfortunately the system in Edmonton right now just isn't that extensive. It's had problems in the past few years as it's kind of slowly expanded, and the frequencies are not that great on Edmonton's LRT. With all that said though, Edmonton's LRT has a great trajectory compared to Calgary's, for example. That's because right now there's a significant expansion in the Valley Line LRT planned. The Valley Line is actually a lot like the Ion LRT in terms of how it runs and such. It's a bit more interesting because it has a big bridge over the North Saskatchewan River. It also has a tunneled section, some elevated sections, but generally it's kind of a center of the road or side of road standard North American LRT, however with low floor vehicles, which is new for Alberta. Currently the ETS LRT just isn't that extensive. It doesn't cover that much of Edmonton. It covers the downtown core, the Edmonton Oilers Arena, the University of Alberta, a couple shopping malls, so it covers a lot of important destinations. However, with the planned expansion of the Valley Line LRT West, it will also connect to the West Edmonton Mall, which frankly, whenever I saw Edmonton's LRT map in the past couple of years, it's always kind of been confusing to me why that wasn't a key destination, since it's clearly a massive employment and trip generator. But indeed, Edmonton's LRT, it's not the most impressive right now, but I think, again, it has a great trajectory. The downtown tunnel is going to be absolutely awesome for Edmonton because while Calgary is kind of bottlenecked around their 7th Avenue on-street light rail corridor that can only handle so many trains, eventually you'll see kind of full ATC operations of Edmonton's LRT, at least in the central fully grade separated tunnel section. And that means that you could potentially see, 3 northern legs and 3 southern legs operating at pretty high frequencies. which just means that Edmonton's LRT has more capacity to grow in the future. It also means that there's a bit better connections that can be made in the downtown core via the Pedway system, which is kind of like Toronto's PATH. So yeah, Edmonton's LRT ranks in 6th, but I think it could go up a couple places if the expansion plans currently proposed keep going on. Now, for a tie in 4th place, we have the Ottawa O-Train system and Calgary's LRT. Now, some of you might be kind of shocked. Well, Calgary's LRT has over 40 stations and Ottawa's has less than 20, so how is it that you're ranking them at the same level? And there's a couple reasons. Well, Calgary's LRT is very popular. It still has kind of a number of limitations. There's a couple major destinations in Calgary that are not connected or aren't connected necessarily very well to the Calgary LRT system. For example, the Chinook Centre in southern Calgary is not that well connected to the LRT system. You can, of course, go to the Chinook station and walk over to the mall, but in the climate, it would be great to see a more direct connection. Maybe eventually a realignment of the line or a tunnel in this area could make that connection a bit better, and it has improved because there's a new pedestrian bridge at the Chinook Centre, but it just isn't the greatest connection, whereas Ottawa's LRT has really nice connections to several shopping centres along its route. Another destination that the Calgary LRT doesn't really hit is the major Foothills Medical Center, which is a gigantic hospital and medical complex in kind of north of downtown Calgary. And so I guess my issue with the Calgary LRT is that it goes a lot of places, but it also misses a lot of major destinations. The Calgary LRT is also very parking dependent. There's a lot of free parking and park and rides, and that's all okay, but it means that the stations and the transit is less useful for people who don't necessarily own a car. In Ottawa's case, the system is very well connected with buses. There's a number of major bus interchange stations. Of course, the system has had a number of problems. I wouldn't deny that, but I think once those problems are sorted out, which I think they will be, it might take some time, but I think eventually when Ottawa's system is operating reliably and properly, it's just a much more impressive system. The stations have fare gates, so it really feels like a metro. The trains can operate super frequently because they have basically a very high level of automation. There's a great connection to Line 2, which will connect people to the airport, and Calgary currently doesn't really have a clear plan for connecting their network to the airport. Again, despite the fact that there is already a section of the Blue Line that goes really close to YYC that could just kind of come over. But indeed, Ottawa's system, while smaller than Calgary's, is just a lot higher quality. It also has major expansion plans, which will bring it very close to where Calgary is today, and which I think make it competitive with Calgary's overall system, because while Calgary's system will have more stations total when the Green Line is completed, which again, that project hasn't started construction, Ottawa's system will be quite large still and will be fully grade separated, basically a full metro system that will cover a ton of the important destinations in Ottawa, including the airport and all the major post-secondary institutions, which is just fantastic. And then, in addition to the Ottawa LRT, Gatineau in Quebec is also planning a major kind of tramway or LRT network that will be more like the ION or the Green Line in Calgary, and that will kind of boost Ottawa's network to the next level. So that's why I rank Ottawa and Calgary kind of the same level. So next up, and again, these are probably not super surprising rankings, but I think this video is a good opportunity for me to just kind of talk about why I think systems are good or not good. Third place is the Vancouver SkyTrain. Now, Vancouver placing third is not a knock on Vancouver. Really, Vancouver punches way, way, way above its weight in terms of transit. If you look at cities in the US the size of Vancouver, many of them have 1 or 2 light rail lines. They're not super impressive. Vancouver has a pretty dense and large full metro network that connects the airport, a number of different key destinations like shopping centers and high density nodes, several different cities. It's just a fantastic system, and it's really well integrated with the rest of the TransLink network, and it just means that the system feels like something you would see in quite a bit bigger city, at least in North America. You also have the fact that Vancouver, despite being quite small, has incredibly high frequencies on all of its SkyTrain lines because of the automated nature of those lines. Furthermore, Vancouver also has the C-Bus, which is an awesome ferry connection from downtown Vancouver to North Vancouver, which will in the future, in I guess a little over a month, have a connection to a rapid bus line in the North Shore area. You also have really aggressive expansion plans in Vancouver. Now, despite this, Vancouver is still going to remain in third place because Montreal and Toronto systems are just already quite a bit bigger, and the projects they have planned are more significant than the projects Vancouver has planned. But Vancouver is planning at least 2 major SkyTrain extensions, new stations along existing lines, potentially a gondola to SFU. So lots of awesome expansion going on in Vancouver. And something that Vancouver has that none of the cities I've mentioned previously has is a commuter rail line. Now, the West Coast Express only has, I believe, 5 trains a day, so it is quite a limited service, but just kind of introducing commuter rail, having the concept out there because is a big benefit, I think, because what it means is that residents of Vancouver know of commuter rail. They have experience with it to some degree. And so in the future, expansion plans can include more commuter rail. And I think building a new network of a certain modality is much harder than kind of expanding an existing one. So yeah, that's Vancouver, and it ranks 3rd place. Now, in 2nd place is Montreal. And Montreal, I often, say it's not as good as Toronto, the system's not as expansive. But to be clear, I think personally on kind of if I think of Montreal's network as it is today and as it will be when the REM system opens, I truly think it's probably our most significant network internationally in terms of things like architecture, the rolling stock design, the connectivity it offers, some of the great things like cross-platform interchanges, etc. The Montreal Metro is truly a gem of a metro network, and I think in a lot of ways it feels like our most just impressive system overall. A lot of the stations in the core of Montreal are just these gigantic cavernous stations. They feel like something out of Europe, like Paris, of course. There's a number of stations with just really incredible architecture on the Montreal Metro, and it just feels like a really fantastic system when you're traveling around on it. Also, Montreal's newest metro trains, the Azure trains, they're the nicest trains in Canada. I think they're significantly better than the Mark IIIs in Vancouver and the Rockets in Toronto, and really, I think they're one of the best trains I've ever ridden on. The fact that they don't have AC, that's one of the major downsides of Montreal's metro, and it's something I think long-term Montreal will have to address because as global temperatures continue to rise, I think, subway systems are already often uncomfortable in the summertime, and that's going to be a problem. So I think increased ventilation and eventually being able to do AC on Montreal's metro system is something that Montreal's going to have to try to do. I'm sure the engineering can be done. It won't be easy, but it's something that I think will be important. Montreal's metro, of course, covers so much of the island of Montreal. It also connects to both the North Shore and the South Shore, which is fantastic. There's a lot of great bus connectivity with the Montreal Metro. And then in addition, there's the massive REM network. And I'm gonna call it a network because there's just so many branches and destinations on the system. Now, REM is going to be really great in a lot of ways, and to some degree, it feels like basically what's happening is Montreal's taking its existing high-order, high-capacity metro system and then overlaying on top of it a system very similar to Vancouver's SkyTrain. The thing that's great, though, about REM, unlike Vancouver's SkyTrain, is that it's quite a bit higher capacity. The trains will be 3 meters wide, whereas the Expo and Millennium Line trains in Vancouver are only about 2.7 meters wide. So there's going to be a lot more capacity overall. You're also going to see things like platform screen doors for the first time on a metro line in Canada, as well as Wi-Fi on all the trains. It's just going to be a super modern network that competes with anything brand new you see in Europe or Asia these days. And then, of course, I can't help but mention Montreal's commuter rail network. Now, it's kind of, I would say it's better than Vancouver's system because there's a number of lines, but there's basically no all-day service that's, reasonably frequent. So I wouldn't really call it a fantastic network in terms of regional rail. It's kind of that third highest level of rail connectivity for the Montreal region. It's not great, but provides commuter rail on a number of corridors, so it is a valuable asset. Now, finally, Toronto, the great city I've called home for the past 4 years. Now, it's number one, and there's a ton of reasons why it's number one, and I'm just gonna try to list them off. So Toronto currently has, by far, the most new lines and new stations planned. Currently, we have 2 rapid transit lines under construction today, being the Finch West LRT and the Eglinton LRT. Both of them are progressing well and will be done in the next couple of years, and they're going to take Toronto's system over 100 stations total. It will be the first system in Canada to be in the triple digits in terms of numbers of stations. Beyond that, the existing TTC network is pretty fantastic. It's high frequency, it's being upgraded. Ideally, it will be more reliable as it's being upgraded, but as I mentioned, high frequency, high capacity. It's old, and it's older than the Montreal Metro. The transfers are definitely more cramped, and the stations are not nearly as beautiful, but it works. It's very functional. The system connects you to a ton of important destinations. You know, U of T, Yorkdale, Eaton Centre, North York Centre, Scarborough Centre, Kipling in the west, Vaughan to the north. It just connects to a ton of different destinations, many of which, of course, I haven't mentioned. And it also has a number of connections to GO, which Montreal has some connections to EXO, but because of the weird kind of way that the EXO lines loop around, it doesn't have as many and they aren't as nice. But indeed, Toronto has a number of GO connections on its rapid transit system. So the rapid transit network in Toronto is awesome. And there's a number of lines that haven't started construction, which are planned, and they're going to make the actual rapid transit network much better in the future. Now, of course, I also have to mention that Toronto is the only city in Canada which has a streetcar network, and Toronto has one of the largest streetcar networks in the world in terms of ridership, and it's definitely the largest in the Americas in terms of track length, and still it's one of the few systems that still exists in North America that's kind of a legacy system. However, unlike cities like Philadelphia, which still have their legacy trolley or streetcar system set up, Toronto's is significantly better. It's better than the kind of new streetcars in the States as well, because unlike the new streetcars in the States, it's a full network. I mean, when you're going through downtown Toronto, you have, in terms of east and west lines only, you have College, Dundas, Queen, King, Queens Quay. So you have 5 east-west lines. You have a number of north-south lines. So it's just incredible the amount of coverage you have. And then also you have the fact that Toronto streetcar operates incredibly frequently. Lines often operate at around a 5-minute frequency, when many lines in the United States operate at 10 or 15-minute frequencies, even worse than that. And then you have the fact that the Toronto streetcar operates large Flexity type vehicles, which are essentially just single LRVs. So it's just a very high capacity and high quality network. And what's even more special is that it's 24/7. So it's the only 24/7 rail service in Canada. Now, finally, of course, I have to talk about the regional rail. And well, Montreal went with the kind of quick and lower cost initially, but lower capacity overall system, which is still very high quality in REM. Toronto is taking the super high capacity, slow to develop solution of basically converting all of GO into its own RER system. Now, 5 GO lines already have 2-way all-day service at least every hour. And there's also service on GO every 15 minutes on both the Up Express and Lakeshore East line, every 20 minutes on the Lakeshore West line. So you can get to a lot of destinations on GO quite quickly, and transfers to GO make a lot of sense from the TTC, whereas transfers to EXO during most of the day don't make any sense, because during most of the day, the EXO system doesn't have trains. GO is also, of course, aggressively expanding with expansions to the east, to Bowmanville, further out from Oshawa. You also have, of course, as I mentioned, GO RER and the electrification project. So GO is just enhancing its service so much and turning into the best regional rail network in North America. So that's my ranking of all of the rapid transit systems in Canada. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, leave a comment down below telling me how you would rank the systems. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next one.